welcome everyone. Azure Cosmos DB Live TV. I'm Mark Brown. I'm joined this week by Estefani, who's come back to join us. Hi, Estefani. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm great. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How's your weather been, by the way? You're in Florida, right?
Yes. Weather has been pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been around the 80s this week.
Yeah, so it sounds like kind of normal Florida weather, I guess, for this time of year.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Really hot on the West Coast. Like I'm down in Southern California, and last week was pretty hot for this area. At least this time of year, it was like in the 90s, 80s and 90s, and then hot in Seattle too. And then I saw the forecast for Seattle, or at least east side, Redmond, kind of towards where Microsoft is, and it's going to be like over 100, like Saturday or Sunday, Monday, which is insane for that part of the country. Like most people don't have AC over there, so I don't know what. I guess everybody's going to be going to Home Depot and clearing out all the little portable air conditioners or whatever around there. So, but yeah, well, good to see you again. And this week you're going to talk to us about all the Azure, all the monitoring and diagnostics and stuff. Is that right?
Yes. Let me know if you can hear me okay, but so I'll dive deep into the monitoring section. So once you log into your Cosmos DB account, so this is a demo account I've set up. If you scroll down, you see a bunch of things under the monitoring section. We've had Pauly Saranya in the past go over a few items here. Today, I'll be diving deep into Insights, which is our new feature for monitoring metrics. It's in preview today. I'll also go into some details of logs, how to monitor your data in a more granular level. And then I'll also show workbooks and insights at scale. So if you want to see how to manage or how to monitor all your Cosmos DB subscriptions, I'll show you that as well. Does that sound good, Mark?
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. And there's some new stuff you're going to show us as well with your demos today, or all what you're showing us.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go I'll first talk about Insights and what's available today. And we'll go into maybe some scenarios, and I'll show you some data that I've pulled in here so we can try to diagnose some issues, and then I'll go into the logs as well. Okay, cool. So first off, for workbooks, this is essentially an out-of-box experience for monitoring using metrics. So we have this blade called Metrics, and this blade shows you all of our metrics, except this is not a dashboard view, right? Every time you go into here, you have to select which metrics you'd like to view multiple times, and if you refresh, everything's gone. So what we've done is added this new blade, which shows you out-of-box metrics. So this is essentially, in a nutshell, a metric that's embedded within this entire view. So what you see here is the total request metrics, data and index usage metrics, total requests but filtered by 429s, the Normalized RU Consumption metric, right? And this is, if you're familiar with Cosmos DB and monitoring, this mimics sort of what we have in Metrics Classic, but just using our monitoring data.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So I was wondering, because it looks almost exactly like our classic, or what we're calling our classic metrics in there as well. This is all built on the new kind of Azure Monitor storage and infrastructure, right?
Exactly. And with this, the first thing when you're using this view, you can definitely select your time range. It's always going to be default right now for the last 4 hours. It's good for you to also select your database and container. For now, we'll come back to selecting that database. We'll just view this in this mode. But what's cool is that if you can hover over this thing, it opens up this button. It opens up the Metrics Explorer. So you can view this metric in full screen. And also, if you just want to pin this, you can pin this so it won't ever change. But so here you can see all your requests, and if you hover over the request, you can see, on today at 1:47 p.m. Eastern time, there was 19, almost 20,000 requests sent to this account. And then it also matches up to the other graphs. So you can see also at that time, we've ingested 2.43 GB of data, and then with indexing information as well. And then if you scroll down, what's nice is you can also see your throttled requests. So during this time, we had 3,000 requests throttled out of the 6,000 that we've had in that view, in that minute. Right, which is quite a bit. And then you can also see this graph, the Normalized RU Consumption metric. This shows you that at that time, we've actually seen a spike of 100%, your Normalized RU Consumption spiking to 100%. And then we also have some details, which we'll link to, I'll open it in a new tab. So while that's loading, which will link you to some documentation as to what these status codes mean, and also what our Normalized RU Consumption metric means as well.
Yeah, that's good. I get lots of questions from folks on what does Normalized RU Consumption mean. So I'm glad you had the foresight to put links in there that explains what it is. I didn't even realize it. I've just been explaining it to folks. So now I'll just send them right back. And I'm like, it's right there. Just click the link. It'll tell you all about it. So.
Exactly. And just for folks watching, the Normalized RU Consumption, we've had a lot of customers say that there's sometimes you see a spike to 100%, but the total number of requests units are not that large to warrant a spike to 100%. But the real reason behind this is because the way we calculate Normalized RU Consumption, and it's also in our documentation, is that at any given moment, so if you have multiple partitions, which I'll show in just a second, that throughput is actually split evenly across your partitions, your physical partitions. So if at any moment one of the partitions spikes, at any second it spikes to 100% utilization, then that is, you'll see 100% utilization in the metric. It doesn't necessarily.
So it's any partition. It's any partition that hits that utilization metric, not the sum total of it, which is interesting, and well, that's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So then if we scroll down, you will also see partition information by collection. So these are some of the collections that I have today, and these are the total requests that I've had in the given time frame that I selected earlier. This gives you like a timeline view. So this particular collection has been the most active within this time frame. And then you also get to see a document count, how many documents we have in that collection within that given time frame, data usage, index usage, and provision throughput, which is nice to see in this view, like all up on your collections, how much throughput you have, and also your Normalized RU Consumption. This is a max during that time frame.
Is the color coding kind of reflective of green equals good and red equals bad, or what is it?
Oh, the color coding is just
colorful.
Yeah, it's just within this column, within the specific column that you're in, the color coding is basically a sign of saturation. So which the most within this column. So in here you see these are the most document counts, data usage. Provision throughput is darkest here because that's the most that you have. And then you have 30K, which is next, is kind of in between. 100%, it's full saturation. So that's the highest you can get.
I see. So it's shades of the same color, and then the depth of that color for the, I get it. Okay, the amount of that. All right.
Yeah.
I think there's some lag today with our connectivity, huh?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a lag. So bear with us, folks, here.
I'll try it. Bear with us, folks. We're trying to do a show.
Yeah. So then next tab is the throughput tab. So this tab tells you the total request units during that given time. So in this case, it's a sum. So at this point, we've had about 30,000 request units for the account. And you also see your Normalizer RU consumption, same graph as before. This is showing, at some points you have spikes to 100%. These are kind of longer spikes. And then what's neat here is your Normalized RU consumption graph in a heat map, where you can see your physical partitions, which are these partition key range IDs. Here we see within this account, we have 9 physical partitions, and some of them are red. Red is bad. This means that it's spiking to 100% utilization sometimes. And also you can see during this time, if you scroll down, some of these partitions are 0. Some of them are being used up to 17%. But these 2 partitions are very red because they're hot. They're being used the most. And oftentimes when we're looking at this metric, we want to see even distribution of this value, right? We don't want to see 100% one partition. We want the partitions to be utilized evenly across that usage. That's
great. So we always say to customers, hey, you want to look out or avoid hot partitions. So this is a really simple, easy way to know if you've got hot partitions within there. Is there a way to know which values within the partitions? These are physical partition IDs. Is there a way to know the logical keys that are associated with that?
At the moment, there's no way. We don't expose the logical partition metric within the Insights blade. I'll show you within logs how you can actually get the physical partitions and which ones are most used later in the show.
Okay. Hey, I got questions from some customers here, or some viewers, I should say. Is there a way on how we can see the currently running query? I guess, how can we figure out which queries are consuming the highest RUs?
Yes. In this view, we can't see what queries, the exact queries. When we go into the section we're talking about logs, I'll be able to show you exactly when you enable logs, which queries are running, which are the top consuming queries, and I'll show you exactly which ones.
Okay. One more question here, and I think we're going to talk about this, or this whole show is about this. Can you mention some use cases where this would help customers find issues or answers? So, I can answer that. For sure, identifying things like hot partitions is going to be important. Just knowing your overall usage as well, like how much of your provision through are you consuming, and helping to determine, are you provisioned at the right level or not, or maybe under provisioned. I know we're going to later, when we get into the logs, talk about finding queries that are consuming a lot of RUs in there. So yeah, Michael, I would just say watch the show. If there's a scenario we didn't cover for you, let us know in the questions, and we'll see if we'll try and answer that. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then we also have this view of the partition key ranges, again, by utilization over time. So you can see this 100, or this partition 0 has gone to 100% over time. And this one also, partition 1, has gone into 100% utilization most often. So this is a way to view all of your partitions in that same heat map, but just in a line graph format. And then again, we can see the throughput provision and how the provision throughput has changed over time. So like, for example, here you can see that this has been steady for the life of this collection. And then this has, maybe some dips in terms of how much you've provisioned for this database or collection. And then really quickly another one section I wanted to cover, which is the request section. This request section basically gives you the requests. And again, you can follow the link in the first page on what status codes we have, what the 200 means, what 429 means. So you can see for yourself what kind of status codes your applications are emitting. And so you can see here, most of the requests are actually 200s. We have a few 429s, 400s, etc. So you can see how that looks like for your account. And again, one of the most important ones that we'd like to monitor is how many requests are being throttled in the given second. And lastly, which is really interesting, is you can see your total requests by operation type. So you can see here, the blue one is most creates, right? So I've been inserting a lot of documents, a few queries, a few reads, read feed, or some queries going against the read feed, and then other, which we don't give too much detail in here, but in logs, we'll be able to see exactly other operation types.
Yeah, okay. That's very cool.
Yeah, and then we'll go into storage really quickly. The rest of them you can probably take a look yourself. But so you can see how much data is being ingested, and index, if you have indexing available within your applications, and how much documents you've ingested as well. Okay, and then now let's go back to the overview.
You can see, oh, sorry.
Oh,
you can see the hot partition storage then, I guess, using that that tab there, right?
So the storage tab actually doesn't give you like partition. You can't filter by partition. But within this view, we are working on adding a few, buffing up our metrics a little bit more by, you can see your hot partition by SKUs, storage SKUs. We can see hot partition by normalized RU consumption, those kind of things we're going to be buffing up our metrics with.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so let's go into a specific database. So what's important is that whenever you look at your insights, is that you don't just look at it at the account level, unless you just have maybe like one database in a collection. You want to basically filter out by a database. And then once you select that database, you can then filter by a specific container. Okay. So let's go with this benchmark 3 container. So this will, what it's doing is actually just filtering out between that database and collection, so that you can see how many requests were made during this point in time for this particular collection. And so what you see actually is during this time, you're seeing about 20,000 requests coming into this container called benchmark. And so around this time, you do see some throttle requests happening, right? So a large portion of your requests are actually being throttled. So normally when we have production workloads, if you see very little throttling, like you don't have to be alarmed if you see 1 or 2 throttled, right? Typically 1 to 5% throttling is okay, depending on what kind of latency you're expecting. But if you see like 50% throttling rates, like what we see here, that's alarming, right? We want to try to diagnose what's going on here.
Yeah, that's agreed. We always say you want to see some throttling because it means you're fully utilizing your throughput and using what you have paid for. But to see like thousands of 429s is something going on there, for sure.
Exactly. And if you see this graph as well, the normalized RU consumption is also spiking to 100%, right? So now let's take a look at this throughput tab. So we can take a look at the partitions. Let's see if we have any hot partitions or if we see anything strange happening in this view as well. So So we know that the normalized RU consumption is spiking to 100%. And, well, what do you know? You do have a hot partition, 100% utilization, right, happening. And what's happening is actually you have 5 physical partitions, and most of the throughput is being consumed by this one partition. And so the other ones you have like 17 and 17, which is pretty uniform, right? All except this one hot partition. So what that means is you probably have to go back and take a look at your data model, right? You've probably not set up your database in such a way that it allows for even throughput distribution. So could be that you're using like date as a partition key, right? When date traditionally is not a really great way to partition your collection, or by state or something that's very common. You want to have a partition key that has high cardinality so that it can allow for very even distribution.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one way you can. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, just agreeing with you. I love what I'm seeing here. So
great. And so another thing, like I mentioned, is to go through there and select the database that you are working with. Let's see if I can go into this collection and see if there's anything strange happening here as well. And potentially, okay, we have a few request units going in, and let's go back to the first overview tab so we can see if there's any normalized RU consumption spiking or if there's any throttled requests. Okay, so this is pretty good, right? We don't see any throttling happening. We have about a few requests going out, no throttling. And again, if you see very low normalized RU consumption, something like very, very low, like 1 or 2% normalized RU consumption, it might actually signify that you potentially could have over-provisioned your account. Usually healthy normalized RU consumption metric is about probably like 50%, 50 to 60% utilization. Love to get your thoughts on that, Mark. But if it's very, very low, it might be a sign that you are potentially over-provisioned your normalized RU consumption. Or sorry, your throughput.
I would say that if you had, the way you correlate this is if you got if you're under load, right? So you're looking at your request volumes and they're pretty big. And then you go back and you look and you've got 0 429s, and your normalized RU is obviously, pretty low, then you've provisioned too much throughput. And maybe what you consider is, turning on auto scale and seeing what your actual consumed throughput is under load, and then maybe rebalancing it or adjusting it if you want to use a standard provision throughput back to that amount, so that you're just kind of at a, you want to leave yourself a little headroom, I guess, right, just for occasional spikes, but too much, and that's just, you're not being efficient.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, so now that you've gotten a sense of what this could potentially be used for, this is actually really interesting. A new feature that we have within Insights is that you can customize this view. So let's say you saw a metric that we didn't expose within this view, you can definitely go ahead and add that into this workbook because all of this is editable. So what that looks like is once you hit edit, you'll have to hit edit once more if I can select that. Okay, while those components are loading, basically this view you can go ahead and edit to your liking. So all of these metrics, like I said, are from the first metrics blade that you saw. So you can add in whatever metrics you want to see. And you can change the default time range. You can edit the colors. You can pretty much do everything within this view. Right now, this workbook is just detecting what API type we're using. So if you're using Mongo, we have a specific workbook for that, and also Gremlin or other Cassandra APIs. And so here you can edit each section. So this section is one section where you can edit, and then you have to find the second section for you to edit, which will be right below this chart here. And so you select this first edit, which will then open up the section for you to go ahead and make changes to this workbook. Okay, so in this view, you can see this is called like SQL workbook, right? So this is just pertaining to our workbook. And the way to edit is just selecting this editable section. And once you do that, you can then edit any of these items within this view. Yeah, so for example, if you want to change this total request graph, you can then just select edit below here. Okay, and now you're able to essentially just edit this this square of overview tab. So if I want to change this total request, say I don't want to view this request graph, I want to see something else, you can just click on edit in the graph, and then it will take you to this metric section, and you can select like a different metric, for example. Let's just select something really quickly so that you can get the feel for how this works. So let's say right now it's selecting the total request metric. But let's say you wanted to view, I don't know, total request units or something. Right, we'll select this. Right, and then you can also select what aggregation type. You can do sum or average. Right now, let's just keep it at sum. Let's save it. And then you can run the metric just to see if it changes for testing purposes. Which then you will see total request units instead of total requests sum. You can also change the title, pretty much edit anything you'd like to see here. And then once you're done editing, just select done editing and then save the workbook. And I'll show you in just a second where this will appear.
So this is, I like this because you can go and customize existing ones we built for you and make them do or show whatever it is you want. Rather than having to go and create all new from scratch, you can just create a new workbook and customize the ones we give you and tune them or make them for your whatever scenario it is you're trying to do.
Yep, exactly. And then once to save it, once you've edited this own template, so you don't have to start from beginning and create your own template, workbook template. You can just latch onto what we have existing and then change a few factors. And then once you do that, you can then select which subscription, which resource group, what location you want to save it at, and then save it. And then once that's saved, you can then select this workbooks. I think I have a tab open here. Where you can find that workbook.
Yeah, I had a question from a viewer. It says, I love the alerting feature of App Insights, but I've never thought to use it for Cosmos. What are some best recommended alerts or best practices for Cosmos performance alerting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So alerting, recently we've had a lot of customers who want to know whenever they're getting a certain threshold of 429. So let's say it's above 10% of 429s, they want to get an alert saying, hey, we have a lot of throttle requests. What should we do? Should we upscale the throughput? Things like that. That could be a potential use case.
You could actually use the alerts and have them call like a logic app, I think, or something. You can have it trigger some kind of action, and then have that run like an Azure function that would scale you up. I mean, that's basically log-based auto scale.
Yeah.
Which could work. I mean, it's going to lag. I mean, the lag is what, 5 minutes, I think, for the data in Azure Monitor.
Yeah, it's about 5 minutes.
So, yeah. So if you wanted to run your own cheap auto scale, it's not going to be awesome like ours is, because ours is instant. But you could use you could do roll your own auto scale using this with alerts, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where you would see the workbooks here. Yeah, so this is where you would see your gallery of all your workbooks here. Here we have an empty template, and then all the workbooks that you saved. See, I have tons of workbooks that I'm working on. They're all saved here, and then you can click on them and refresh and work on whichever's for your specific use case. So that's it on workbooks. Well, one really quick thing I want to show you, if this will take me to Azure Monitor service. And you'll be able to see a workbook that we have where it's an at-scale view. So if you want to manage or monitor all of your Cosmos DB resources at scale, you can look at the workbook here. I'll show you that. Okay, yes. So Azure Monitor has integrations with a lot of other services. So you're actually able to use workbooks and insights for application insights, virtual machines, storage accounts. But particularly for this section, we want to go into the Azure Cosmos DB view. And this will let you see Cosmos DB at a subscription level. So this is some stage subscriptions that I have, which probably don't have much data. So let me select something else here. Right, and then here you can see the subscription, the collections within there, the counts within there. And so if you select this collapse section here, you're actually able to just view and collapse this table so that you can see at a subscription level how much provision throughput do I have, am I using. So for these 2 subscription or however many subscriptions you have, you can see how many documents, what your data usage is like. And you can also download this view, export it to Excel, perform any calculations if you want to reevaluate how much provision throughput you have and how many requests you're making. And this goes into detail about that. You can select all these other tabs which tell you about your operations, your failures, things like that.
That's cool. I didn't, or I guess I did know you could get the documents count in there. That's a question I see every once in a while from folks on, like, say, Stack Overflow is, how many documents do I have in my container? Because it's quite expensive to run like a count across, like do a fan count 1 or something like that, right? And count everything in there. So, so that's handy there. You can just go to this and get that for you. So, and I guess we also are showing that data, if I'm not mistaken, like if you run like Azure CLI and do like a Azure Cosmos DB container show, I think we're showing also that data. And I think it's a number of documents. I think it's probably coming from this source as well. It was a recent addition. So anyway, very cool.
Oh, nice. I didn't know about that, the container show piece. So that's cool. All right.
I got to do an episode on all of our Sorry, the lag is so hard. I keep talking over you.
Much. No, it's fine. It's fine.
There's got to be someone. There's got to be someone in your building that's like downloading the internet or something right now. I don't know what's going on.
I know today has been the worst connectivity ever. Yeah. So what I'll do next is, now that you've seen work insights and workbooks, let's go into logs and diagnostic settings. So what we have today is we have an offering for diagnostic settings. This right now, we have a feature currently in GA, which is a full text query feature, which I'll go into detail about what this is. But essentially, it just lets you do some more advanced logging and see the actual full text for your query. And so you're able to diagnose exactly which queries are the longest running, exactly which queries are consuming the most RUs. For now, I'll just select Not Now, and I will take you to this section on how to create a diagnostic setting. We also have documentation as well that Mark has linked to. Basically, we go into detail about what logs are, what log analytics workspaces are, and where can you send these logs to, as well as how to enable this within your own Cosmos DB resource, and details about what categories we're in, and how to set up that diagnostic setting via the portal. We also have instructions how to set it up via REST API, and as well as via Azure CLI. So let's go back here, I think it was. Yeah, so here you're able to now create a diagnostic setting. I already have a diagnostic setting created. Let me just go ahead and select edit the setting so you can view how I've set this up for this account. So once you select the setting, a lot of the data typically goes into log analytics workspaces. And so we have a few categories or tables where we can send data to. So we have data plane, Mongo request, query runtime, partition key statistics, partition key RU consumption, control plane, Cassandra, Gremlin. So for each of the APIs, we typically want to enable. So if you have SQL API, you typically want to enable query runtime statistics, data plane, partition key statistics. And in the doc, we have details on what the tables mean and which ones should you enable based on your specifics API. We also have this send to log analytics workspaces. So you first need to create a log analytics workspace. So once you have one, you then select your subscription, which workspace you'd like to send the logs to. And we now have a new feature called resource-specific tables. These are the destination tables that we recommend you to set your setting up with, because with resource-specific, as we'll go into details in just a second, we'll actually saving about 50% cost savings, because we're reducing the amount of data that's actually ingested into these tables as compared to Azure Diagnostics.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I know it can get quite expensive if you turn on Azure if you turn on the diagnostics on this for this, especially if you're ingesting a large amount of data. I think it also gets worse, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So this is good.
Yeah, exactly. So the logs or logs workspaces are actually built based on the data or the data that's ingested. And so by using the resource specific setting, you're actually reducing the amount of data that is ingested by properties. And so that results in less costs, as we've seen. So once you log into logs, you will see these queries. We have a few query examples. Once this actually loads up, I think I may have this section open. Okay, here, I have one open. Great. So in this view, we have the tables and some sample queries. So let's say you have already provisioned or have a log analytics workspace with Azure Diagnostics, you'll be able to see this Azure Diagnostics table and what this table means. So here you typically see not only like Cosmos data, but anything that is in that log analytics workspace. And then we also see, let me actually collapse this because it's a really long table. But if you enable the resource-specific tables, now we have this new and improved tables, which are all one category per table. So you see Cassandra requests, control plane requests, data plane, Mongo, partition key, RU consumption, and partition key statistics. These all map to that category within the diagnostic setting that I showed earlier. And each of these tables has a bit of a description about what this means and how it's used. And if you select one of these tables, you can view what the schema looks like. So we have things like account name. And what's the account name, right? The account name of your Cosmos DB account. What's the collection? What's your database? What's your partition key? Partition key, actually, in this case, is the logical partition for storage of your account. You also have your region name, size. So what's the size of your partitions? Source systems, and some tenant ID information, which typically don't really use as a user, but and also as well as obviously your time generated when these get logged.
So partition key there, is that the property name? Is that the partition key path? Is that what that's going to have in it? Or is it the value for?
Yeah, this is actually the value of the logical partition key.
Okay, so here, like I was asking earlier, this is where you would find out, okay, what value for my partition key, my logical partition key, is causing me issues with hot partitions.
Exactly. And
got it. So I could run a query here and then do summarize on that partition key, and then do a count on throughput on RU.
Exactly. So you're right on the money, Mark. We have some in this section in the documentation. We have advanced queries where we have some details of some example queries that you can use to diagnose your issues that you may have, like the top end running queries. You can just literally copy and paste this Custo query and then into your logs, and then it should tell you the top 10 queries, as well as your throttled requests, response lengths, physical partitions, RU consumption by physical partition, RU consumption by logical partitions. So you can just copy and paste that and take that on over to your logs.
This is awesome. I mean, you've got all of the your hot button issues that people have for when they're trying to diagnose or troubleshoot issues, whether it's cost, performance, etc. In Cosmos, and they can just cut and paste those and run them. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, I ran this query earlier, one of the queries in the documentation, and here you can actually see this is the partition key, which is the logical partitions. Some of them, there's like some auto-generated partitions, but for the most part, I have some partitions by name, right? And so this is like Carly, Evangeline, Cohen, all these things. So these are my logical partitions. So overall, you can see that we have probably one partition that's being used the most, and you can see how much the size, right, in that partition. So this is how you can view your partition skew based on the size of data.
And the values. That's great.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So really quickly, just wanted to share a few more things of how we typically used to do diagnostics. We used to use this table called Azure Diagnostics. So if you have Azure Diagnostics enabled, you are probably familiar with this view. We had to select basically what category, where category equals data plane, where category equals query runtime statistics, where category equals X. Now with the new view, you actually don't have to do that. You just have to query the specific table. partition key RU consumption, or whichever table, and you're able to quickly view the schema, which is really great. Yeah. So if you want to just quickly view what some of the things are under each of these tables, we can do a quick take 10 just to give you an idea of what this looks like. Let me select this and let's do take 10. Oh. So if you don't select a time range, if you don't select here where time generated equals the X time range, you can also do it from here. You typically have like 24 hours is the default setting. But if we do just a take 10, be able to see some data within this workspace. Okay. Okay, so here you can see, actually, let me collapse this so it's a bit better view. Here you can see things like your account name, your database name, your collection name. And again, every time you're working with these queries, it's always good to filter by your collection and database. So you don't want to typically see this at an account level. So in the queries that I have in the documentation, you can definitely go ahead and filter by that as well. You can also see, which partition key range ID. And this, as I mentioned, the partition key range ID is usually maps to a physical partition. And then you can also see the query text. So query text is the feature that I was mentioning that we just recently released. Basically lets you see exactly which queries were called and what information was used. So for example, I did a select star from C where username equals Alice. If you didn't have this feature enabled, you would actually see the obfuscated query. So you would see like XXX are not the value that's here. So now you can see exactly which queries are the longest running and which ones were issued when. I also have another sample with concurrency and
do users still have to file a support ticket to enable the full query text?
No, it's actually now available for you to self-serve. So if you go into our settings and into the features section, you have this Azure Synapse link and also Azure Diagnostics full text query. Right now it's on, and you would just have to select this and enable, and that should give you the full text query view. Okay, very cool. Yeah, so one thing to know is all newly ingested data you will be able to see the full text. So if you turn it on, you won't be able to see previous data. Yep, makes sense. Yep. Right, so this is how that full text query feature would look like, as well as like activity ID and what table it is and a few other things. And then what I'll show one last thing is I just wanted to go through the schema once more for what's available with each of these categories, just so you could get an idea. So again, for partition key statistics, it gives you mostly logical partition data. So again, this partition key is the logical partition and also the region and size of that partition. There's also the partition key RU consumption table, which gives you information on the partition key range, which is the physical partition, request charge. So this is what you will see, how many, what's the highest partitions with the most request charges or the highest request charges. And you can use a similar query to Mark mentioned on summarizing by the count and the request charge as well to get that data. And then last thing was data plane, which gives you AAD if you have this integration within your account, as well as so this gives you details about, who ran what query and who did what, which is super awesome to see. what kind of authentication token type they use, client IP address, user agent information. So this is really, really detailed logs here that you can see once you enabled logs.
Yeah, very cool. Just a comment I threw up earlier, that full text query thing. The viewer here says now we can see the queries that Entity Framework sends. You can actually see them using Fiddler as well. If you install Fiddler on your client that you're running the SDK from, and then you can see what it's sending across the wire. So you don't need to rely on this, but we're happy if you do, right?
Exactly.
For sure.
Great. Yes.
Well, so is that everything you wanted to show us this week?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If we have any other questions or anything regarding these features or how to monitor, would love to get your thoughts or any comments my way so that we can better improve these products and things like that.
Yeah, right. So, always send, if you got feedback, you can put it in the comments for this episode on YouTube, or you can send it to us on Twitter at AzureCosmosDB.com, and we'll make sure to send all those to Estefani. I got to say, such a huge change and improvement over the monitoring and diagnostics we had even just a year ago on this. This is a lot of stuff has been done. And for a multi-tenant service like Cosmos, it's critical to be able to monitor how your apps or your databases are performing, because it's resource governed. It's not running on a VM. This is running in a multi-tenant service, so you need these types of things to be able to troubleshoot and diagnose what's going on in there. So I love it. This is great stuff. Always a pleasure seeing great stuff. And Estefani, once again, you're working on some of the coolest stuff going on in the service with Linux emulator, and now all of these awesome monitoring and diagnostics that we've got going on. So thanks again for coming on. It was great having you. And we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. We'll have to have you back for, I don't know, what else are you working on that maybe we can get you, get
bunch
you
of
back here soon. So, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we won't share any secrets today. So we'll have you back on when all the secret stuff you're working on comes out, and then you can show us and tell us all about that. So, so thanks again for coming on again this week. Thanks again, folks, for joining us. Next week, we've got Tim Sanders going to be back, and he's going to talk about the new integrated cache and dedicated gateway. If you recall, last week we had Mei Chen talk about kind of the why and how they built this integrated cache and dedicated gateway and kind of the process for that. Next week, Tim's going to show the what. He's going to show some pretty remarkable demos and talk more about how you can use this and kind of the use cases where integrated cache can either help you a good deal on performance or save you a whole ton of money. So come and join us next week for that. And then I will be scheduling some more upcoming episodes. But we're getting into the summer months here, and I'm probably going to take a week or two off over the next maybe piece of July and some of August or whatever. So we won't shut down the thing entirely. But if you miss a week, that's probably because I'm off vacationing with the family. So if you're looking for an episode to watch, there's a whole bunch. A whole bunch in the can in YouTube. You can go back and watch any of those. So anyway, that's it. I don't see any more questions from everybody. So that'll do it for this week. Thank you very much for joining. And thank you, Estefani.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.